Welcome to the Kegel Show. My name is Don Agent. I will be your host. And it's with great pleasure that I can introduce and sit next to a very good friend of mine, colleague, Del Warren, Vice President of the Kegel Training Facility. So nice to actually see you in the country for once.
Yes, we usually run into each other at some other continent or country or airport or something, so it's great to actually be here in the Spark Room at Kegel, and we get a chance to chat a little bit.
You know, I actually had to cheat. I brought my glasses. I actually had to print a few notes because when we sat down and really started going kind of through this interview and going through the story, I mean, there's a lot of things to talk about. You've obviously done a tremendous amount in bowling. I mean, you've been with Kegel for over 10 years.
Yeah.
You started out in the industry in 1977. You know, you started as a porter, I think I remember, and which is what I started out as in the 80s, and then you went from pin chaser to beat mechanic to all the way to the pro shop. You know, you had a successful career on the PBA Tour. Can you kind of take our viewers through that journey, I guess, from 1977 to 1989?
Yeah, and actually when we first started talking about what the project was originally supposed to be, it turned to be something else, right? And you got me to thinking about how I got started in my journey. And some of the things I told you I haven't really told anybody for like 30 years. So, and actually I started working at a bowling center out of a need. I loved to bowl and I wanted to be a pro bowler, and my mom and dad basically said, yeah, I mean, but you're on your own. You need to figure out how to earn your own money. And so started out with a paper route, and then from there I needed to spend more time in the bowling center, so I got a job as a porter like we all did.
To get free bowling, essentially? Is that what you were looking for?
Well, that, and you know, as an employee you got a discount, and then you got to know the owner, and of course he threw you a couple of, you know, free games here and there. But then, you know, as you get into it, you know, I love bowling so much that everything really, anything that I wanted to learn really was more about helping my game, you know. So it was really a need of financial, and then it turned into anything that I could learn about. You know, then of course we went into lanes, and then how the pins fell, and then learning how to fit and drill, and then taking my first coaching certification in 1977, 1976 was really not a need of wanting to learn how to coach. It was more about learning things to help my game to get better as a player. Right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so then, you know, from there I met Billy Hardwick at our, it wasn't called Junior Gold back then, it was called the All-American Youth Bowling Championships. And it was in Greenwich, Connecticut, and you know, along the way in the semifinals and the regionals I bowled against a guy by the name of Wes Pye, who's now one of the big wigs at Storm.
Absolutely.
And so we've been lifelong friends, and then at Nationals I bowled against a guy by the name of Mike Albee. And then Billy Hardwick was there representing Brunswick at the time, and he was opening a pro shop in Fort Lauderdale, and he said, I want to have you start working in my pro shop. I will help you get your PBA card when you graduate after this tournament, which he did. I signed a deal with Munsingwear, me and Mike Albee did. We got, you know, a lot of free clothes, including slacks and everything.
Yeah.
And then the gentleman there named John, you know, taught me how to fit and drill in their freestanding pro shop in Lighthouse Point. And Billy helped me get my first automobile, as a matter of fact, and I used to babysit Christopher, who's now a big celebrity. He was like 5 or 6 years old, so kind of a small world. And then from there, my career started, and along the way, as most of us do, we don't go on the tour right away full time. I had a sponsor for a few tournaments here and there, and from there, when Billy got out of the pro shop business, I went to work at a place called Phase Bowling Supplies in Lake Worth, and they were the largest freestanding retail pro shop in the state at that time. So
yeah, that was kind of unheard of back then, having off-site freestanding shops for the most part. Wasn't that kind of a new business model?
Well, actually, there was a lot more of those back then than there was today, because as we know, there was a lot more bowlers.
Gotcha.
And I worked for a family. I worked for Nate and Faye Green at the time, and we started out with one storefront, and we ended up with 3. And as we grew, we rented the place next to us. And we're right on Dixie Highway there in Lake Worth Road, and I learned more about fitting and drilling. And matter of fact, the gentleman that's still our salesman today for Dexter was Bobby Ridings. And Bobby Ridings had just started and he was our sales guy.
Fantastic.
So he was just here last week calling on us, and so I've known him for 40 years, right? Pretty cool. So from there, I just continued to bowl regionals, and I eventually, ended up going on tour full time.
And let's talk about that, because you mentioned some pretty fantastic people. I mean, obviously Billy
Right.
West Pye, Mike Albee,
Right.
which I've all had the wonderful opportunity to meet. You had some additional influences, though, also that essentially when you went out on tour, I mean, it was, not just to be a bowler, but kind of gave you that aha moment of, wow, I may kind of also want to be a coach and getting a coach's. I mean,
Well, that came in 1985, really with John Jowdy, I think you're referring to. I was always really competitive, so I coached a lot of my junior teams, but we didn't consider it coaching. I just wanted them, they were not as involved in bowling, I wanted to win the league, right? So they, sometimes they'd miss because they had Little League, or sometimes they'd miss because they have Cub Scouts, and that would drive me nuts, So I was trying to coach the team because I wanted to win, and
Right.
that made a lot of parents mad sometimes because I was that competitive. But it was really, when I think about it, why I was doing it, I was actually coaching them, right? But I didn't consider it that, because I don't even think we used the term coach back then.
it was volunteers that I remember.
Volunteers,
A lot of times
and we didn't even
parents
call it
and-
practice, we just went and bowled,
Yeah.
right? So I bowled full-time. I started out part-time. I was in 1984, I bowled my only full-time year on the Southern region, and that's back when we had 41, 42 tournaments. I was the player of the year, and I got a sponsor, someone you know very well, Jim Campbell, and the Campbell family.
Yes.
Put me on tour full-time.
I got
and,
beat a lot by the Campbell brothers, Darren and Roger. Were
Sure.
Fantastic. Hello to both of y'all, three of y'all, if you're not watching the
total
show.
family into bowling,
Mhm.
and so I went on tour, and my first year was as a first year person was not a bad year. I made a lot of finals and several checks, and but as it had it, the last term of the year, it went down between me and about 6 players, and it literally went down to the last block, and I ended up finishing 51st on the point list. Now back then you had to finish in the top 50 to get out of the rabbits, and that was big.
Yep.
So I was crushed, as you can imagine. I missed by an eyelash for, you're talking about 32, 33
Do you want to
times.
kind of tell the audience that may not know what the rabbits are?
Oh.
What kind of that was?
Well, they called them the Pro Tour Qualifier, the PTQ, but back when the tour bowled, 30-some weeks with a winter, spring, and a summer, there were so many entries that you had an exempt field, and you had people that were exempt every week, like Hall of Famers and people that had done well the year before. But then you had so many entries that they actually had to have a tournament to get into the field. And the number of available spots varied from tournament to tournament. Obviously, there wasn't a lot of spots on the winter tour, and there was a lot more spots on the summer tour, but having to qualify just to get into the tournament when you were on the tour every week was a lot of pressure.
It's stressful.
And we have a couple of lane guys. You used to be the lane guys on the tour that work at Kegel right now. So I always accuse them of experimenting with the tour rep guys. And the scores are always really low, and and you had to make spares, but it was a lot of pressure, and so that was a big deal to get exempt. You had an extra day. You had an extra day to bowl special pro-ams at night, and so I was crushed, to say the least, in my confidence. So I got the courage to, after a day of mourning, I had courage to go and I tapped John Jowdy on the shoulder. And back then I was a pretty shy guy, and John Jowdy was, he was the coach for the tour guys. And I told him, I said, listen, Mr. Jowdy, I will do anything. I will do anything you say. Whatever you want me to do, I will do it to be a player that to live my dream. And literally the next day we went to a local bowling center. We got there about 8 o'clock. His fee was always lunch and rubbing his back and trying to get the knots out of his neck. That was his fee. And literally he tore me down in a whole day. No video camera.
Wow.
And literally I went to the next level that day. So it's funny how today we're afraid to touch someone's physical game or make changes before a tournament. Literally, we made all the changes with no video, and So by the time we were done that night, we had dinner, and they had a huge tournament that night. Now, this was the end of the season, so all the guys from the tour that didn't make the finals was around and in town. Plus, in Ohio, you have a lot of really good bowlers back then.
Absolutely.
So there was about a 180-man field, and I won.
Nice.
So
After
literally,
one day with John.
One day with John, I won the tournament. It paid a significant amount of money. And literally, I went home, I won a regional, I shot 300. I bowled really good during the fall break before the winter tour started. I had a lot of confidence. And then we opened the 86 tour. I was rooming with Randy Peterson. True story. We start the Northern California Open, and lowest scoring tournament in a lot of years. I finished 10th. I made the top 10. He wins his first title. John was coaching him as well.
Wow.
So Randy lived between Northern California. He lived right in the middle of Santa Maria. We stopped by. Obviously, we had a nice party that night, and he stood up in the party and made a toast and said, "This is to my roommate. He's going to win next week." So we go to LA and Torrance, and I win.
Unbelievable.
I made 3 shows that winter, including back-to-back in Connecticut and the Firestone. I came within a hit away of, I believe, of winning the Firestone. I bowled very well, and my career was off and running. And and I give 100% credit. And what's funny is every time I would get out of rhythm or I'd lose a little bit of confidence, I'd work with John. We'd go to a local bowling center. This time it would take him about 20 minutes to really get me back. Literally 20 minutes. He goes, "You're doing this again. Why are you doing this?" And he'd give me a little bit of,
The benefits about, I think, having a coach that has worked with you, would you agree, and understands enough of your game that they can break it down that quick after they've gotten you.
Well, it really intrigued me how he did it. It really, without really thinking about it consciously, it told me what a coach could really do. And at the same time, it said, it made me ask the question, how did he know how to do what he did when he looked at me and what I was doing? And I saw him do it over the years. I saw him do it over and over and over again, no videotape. And I think the last time I talked to him, he had turned 90. He got inducted to another Hall of Fame.
Fantastic.
And he was still doing lessons a little bit here and there on the side, no video. And that's really just, and as I bowled on tour, obviously, you learn, you want to get better, and not only that, but being around different people from different parts of the world, learning what they learned, how they bowled, it just, it answered more questions, but it also, it created more questions. So, and then through that, my back got hurt, and because of some anatomical issues and really mechanics that was pretty stressful to the body. Again, our generation learned how to bowl, I think, incorrectly in some ways.
A lot of us starting out.
Well, a lot of us starting with big pushaways and incorrect alignment. Put a lot of stress on my low back, and I ended up with, about the time I got really good, my best 12 months on tour was top 10 in money, top 10 in average, top 10 in points. I got hurt, and I never really recovered.
Sure.
My last year and a half on tour was really survival. And then I had to go home and I had to figure out what to do. And around that time in '88, I was at a regional and I met Mo Pinnell by accident.
Yeah.
And he and I became friends. And man, you talk about an intriguing
Another
guy.
brilliant mind.
And the way he looked at it, we just became friends. And long story short, I moved to Franklin, Virginia with my best friend Chuck Gardner, who ended up buying that business, and I ran that business for 13 months with him and his wife. I happened to be in the right place at the right time. Mo started designing cores for AMF. AMF was about 90 miles away. He lived in Hampton, Virginia. One thing led to another, and I ended up with a tour rep job at AMF back when the tour rep position was brand new. AMF was the last company to kind of get that, and then we really started to learn about what balls can do, and reactive, it just came out. And literally there was a guy on tour whose job was to read the lanes and lay out balls for the staff, to give the staff as big an advantage as possible to try to get the product on television.
I remember that when I was out actually doing lanes on tour. There were quite a few tour reps from ball manufacturers. Let's fast forward, okay, last 10 years. or more actually.
Yeah.
You've been here at Kegel. Obviously, you were from the first graduating class of gold level coaches.
Yep.
All right. You were also coach of the year in 2000, I believe.
No.
Or top 200.
Yeah, I've been in the top 100 since the inception of the top 100, and so that's pretty cool.
Now, you've coached people from many countries all around the globe, whether it's been yourself traveling or them coming to the Kegel Training Center. What, in your mind, can you enlighten us on what makes the Kegel Training Center experience so much more different than what maybe other people have availability?
Well, there's actually a lot. One is the coaches here. We don't even coach the same way we did 10 years ago because, as you get older, you ask more questions. John's favorite word, our founding father, John Davis, his favorite word was curiosity, right? And so when you got Randy Stoughton and you got Brent Sims and you got, Rick Wilsey and now you got Ruben and Alex, these guys are all into how do we learn, how do we get better at this and how do we learn that, and maybe what we taught 15 years ago is not applicable today because the game has changed and we learn more. So when you're around a group of people like that, we're constantly challenging each other. That's number one. So the level of our knowledge and education is going up every day. And since I've been here, of course, we started a college team, the Weber International College Team. That in itself has been an education and coaching. So I've been really blessed to be around some really smart people, and literally when jobs have opened up, I've actually been in a place where I could learn a new skill. So the people here that are that passionate about, when you come here, that coach really wants you to do better, and they're going to help you figure out how to get your game to the next level. And two, just the facility, having a place where we don't have to deal with leagues and announcements, and I have the keys to the place.
Right.
And our wonderful boss, Chris Chartrand, he just checks up on me every once in a while and makes sure that we have everything that we need. And now the Mitchell family, we just invested $250,000 with some new space-aged coaching tools, that we can measure things that we couldn't measure before with the Torch and Specto and brand new cameras. So the facility and the atmosphere here of learning really pushes the coaches to get better, and at the same time, there's never been a place I've ever worked where all the employees, whether in the training center in Kegel, are just all about the game and the sport and pushing it to another level. And especially when we're dealing with our customers, as you know, we really want to take care of that customer.
Absolutely.
So it's just the whole thing. It's not just one thing that really makes the training center special.
That's one of the things I think you'll agree, whether it's guests that I'm having down from a mechanical standpoint or a seminar standpoint, or it's people coming in to get lessons, or even one of our vendors. I don't know how many times people walk up and say, wow, you people actually really like each other. You really get into what you do. I've never seen people as passionate about that, All right, so now let's take a little bit of a different turn, okay? You and I are in the business on a daily basis, obviously, okay? We discussed how bowling has changed, okay?
Right.
We've got a whole new different family entertainment business model right now that a lot of us refer to as the FECs. Is it a waste of time for them to really try a coaching option in those business models, or can they still, grow some of their clientele internally as well?
Well, from what I understand, what we're finding out is even the businesses that open as initially an FEC model, they're finding that there are holes in their week and they're getting people starting to request in those models that they actually have organized play. So you've got traditional bowling centers that are having to add FAC because there's holes in their weeks, and now you're having traditional, they're having the new model of FEC that is aimed at a certain customer, but they're not able to take either one of those models and fill the entire week. So what we're finding out now is some of these FEC models are going, we have an opportunity to fill it with organized play. And when you have customers, no matter what their average, people want to get better. And so, so many times I meet people on the road that say, well, the reason why I don't come to the training center is, you only train good bowlers. And I'm like, I wish you would see my clientele. I train passionate bowlers. And we're in Senior Haven down here in Florida, right? And so we have a lot of baby boomers now that have a little bit of money, they have more time. They bowled a little bit back before, they got married and had kids. Now their kids are in college or they're out of college, and they want to get back to bowling. But they've got bad knees, bad hips, bad backs, and maybe they're a little overweight. And so, how can I come get back into bowling, but I've got some issues now, but I want to be competitive at whatever the level that there is. So, the good thing is that there is FVC centers, and there's brand new centers, and the good thing is they're finding out that there's opportunities to grow their model with people that want to play, and with people that want to play, they want to get better, which means there's an opportunity for coaching. Just like our new torch. I mean, it's such a no-brainer tool, as you've seen, that it just kind of says hello, and I can help you and get you to see the lane a different way than you've ever seen it before.
And the light goes off, no pun intended.
Right, and the light goes, right. So, I'm excited that, we do have people investing in new facilities, and with those facilities, as you know, they have to have lane oil, they have to have a lane machine to protect the lane, and that they're recognizing now that there's a need for competitive play in those models. And I love the fact that I work for Kegel, and we're so invested in competitive play, and no matter who you are, it's just like me being a golfer. I'm not going on tour tomorrow, but hey, I want to hit it a little bit further, and I want to hit it a little bit solid, and I want to shoot my best score, because when you do that, you have more fun, right? So it really is about you getting better to help your level of enjoyment, right? And the game today is very interesting, whether you think the game is, where it should be from, if you're old school and you don't like the game today, it is way more interesting and way more complex at the same time. So you need a coach, you need a mentor to be able to teach you how to do that kind of stuff. Otherwise, it becomes a lot more difficult than it needs to be.
Well, and that's one of the things we've always discussed, and we'll wrap it up, I think, after this, because I know you've got additional lessons today. But, one of the things about, how many people leave this wonderful sport because they come in, they throw the ball one or two games, they're confused, the ball doesn't fit, there's no oil, there is oil, nobody's there to educate them. They never come back because it's just too complicated. A couple of very simple lessons and tips, even from the local bowling center and the staff there, could help better that experience.
Well, and I think because coaching in general has gotten better, and the information, if a parent, for example, has a child that gets into high school bowling and now they want to take a coaching course, the information is much more solid than it was. And the information, when we learn new things, if we're constantly coaching, I'm constantly posting videos on our website and on Facebook. When I have an oh by the way moment and something I can share with either a bowler or a coach, that gets passed on immediately. And now with the information age, people are learning at such a much higher rate. And the information is good information. It's because we have things like Specto and Torch and things that we can measure in much higher quality video. The learning curve is much shorter. And so now when new bowlers come up, or even bowlers that are trying to get back into the game, they get better faster.
Yeah.
And that's what we do best here, is that people get better faster. And because we have busy lives. I mean, it's not like in the old days where, heck, I used to bowl 100 games a week and not even think anything about it. People don't have time to do that anymore, but they want to get better, right? So it's really a win-win-win all the way around with the new technology. And I think the training center over the years has really, it's helped a lot of coaches, a lot of people, and a lot of people enjoy the game better.
It's pretty much the feedback I've received traveling for this company. I mean, and you know what? For any of you out there in the audience that have never had an opportunity to either come down and take a lesson down here, or just come down to the facility and visit us, please, whenever you're in the area, give us a holler. We'd love to give you a tour. Maybe you got some extra time in your day you can spend with one of these wonderful coaches, and we might even take you to lunch. It all depends. But Del, I can't thank you enough for joining us, and it's been an absolute pleasure. And obviously, we'll be doing some more videos together here in the near future. With that, I think that's going to be a wrap, everybody, and keep those wrenches turning, and have a wonderful day.